Welcome back to the show, everybody. My name is Dr. Yasmin Flores, and this is the Arts at EPCC. With me today is one of my former students and one of my favorites. We have favorites, okay? Don't let anyone ever lie to you, okay? This is Anthony Zavala. Hello, Anthony.
Hello, how are you?
Very good. I'm so glad to have you on the show. I wanted to have you on the show last year, but I think, I don't know, we got swept up into the daily minutia. And so then finally it was like, oh, well. So I called him very last minute and he was able to jump on the show. So welcome to our set. This is George.
Hi, George.
Let me kind of show you around. He got his own spotlight too, which is very exciting. So Anthony, I've been wanting to talk to you and pick your brain and ask you a million questions about, first of all, how you're doing. So you left EPCC. What year was that?
I left in the fall of 2019.
Oh, wow. So right before the crazy.
Right before it happened.
Wow. Right. we don't even want to say the word out of fear. Yes, before it all happened, it being COVID, and you left right at the peak because we were doing really well. The department was really moving in the right direction, and then everything the whole world dismantled. But now we are post-pandemic where I try not to even refer to it anymore because it's so in the past. So you went to UTEP and you're a trombone player and a music ed major.
Right.
Yes. And so you are studying with Frank Otero, you mentioned.
That's right.
Yes. So what are some of the, first of all, let me rewind. When did you start playing the trombone?
Interestingly enough, traditionally people start playing, if they're in band, instruments in 5th or 6th grade.
Right.
But I didn't start playing the trombone until I was a junior in high school.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
So that is interesting. But you know what I have found, oddly enough, is that people that do start a little bit later are usually a little bit more mature about it, right? And they don't get burnt out on it. I started in 6th grade, and mind you, I loved it. I loved it for many years. But now my life is starting to kind of take me down a slightly different path. But I would say that's very interesting. And so you fell in love your junior year, and this was at El Dorado, correct?
Yeah.
Yes.
El Dorado High School.
And so you had, who was your band director there?
At that time, it was Tom Tomzik and Kurt Bershaw.
Oh, that's right.
That's right.
That goes back a ways, my friend.
Yes.
Okay. And of course, we have to mention my very good friend, Rick McDowell. Who just would have been celebrating his 63rd, I think, birthday. Or no, maybe a little bit older now, because I think he was born, well, we don't have to get into logistics, but he's still in our hearts. And I got a text from our student, Mari Cruz. Remember Mari Cruz?
Yes.
And so she texted me on his birthday, and kind of at random. And, you know, my mind, I'm glued, I'm stuck in my own world that day doing whatever I was doing. And so I was like, why is she texting me? Right? Because I hadn't heard from her in forever. And she mentioned, of course, Mr. McDowell, and that's when I remembered. I was like, oh, that's right. Yes. So, so Rick is always watching over us. And so you had him, were you also in the choir?
I wasn't in the choir, but I did take piano lessons with Mr. McDowell. That's when I started learning. Traditionally, sheet music, theory, everything that goes with it on the piano. Yeah. Mr. McDowell.
Awesome. Yeah, Rick he left such a hole in the department because he was able to accompany voice, because he was a vocalist, obviously he was a tenor, and he played piano and he spoke French. And there were so many things that he did, and suddenly to have that void, it was like, frozen. We're just like, what do we do? So that's really terrific. And Rick always spoke very highly of you with good reason. And so you were in our band a few years back when I was the band director of the concert band. And you had learned quite a bit. You also had John Feeney for a moment.
That's right.
Yeah, you had him for a semester or two. And then so you get to UTEP. So what is some of the things that you've learned with Mr. Otero?
The key word here is consistency. So if I do something, I have to do it consistently well.
Yes. Wow. And you know what, Anthony, you'll have to forgive me because I think I'm in my 40s now. And so I'm not that old, but I'm old enough now that sometimes I, as a teacher, forget that an 18 or 19-year-old, some of these ideas are like an epiphany. They're like, what? You have to do it consistently? What is this? So that makes perfect sense. So practicing consistently, doing your long tones.
Right.
That's it. Is it funny to you, now that you've had several teachers, how when you meet someone new on trombone or you go to a master class, how suddenly they were on lunch break?
Confirmed.
Yes, confirmed. So for those of you at home watching, we are going to have a little bit of background noise. We have some folks fixing the roof right now. But so do you find it fascinating that when a new person says something, everyone is in awe of it, when it's the same thing that your teacher has been saying for years? I always find that.
I find it really interesting. Kenny Capshaw, a local legend here in El Paso.
Yeah.
His son is a trombonist, and I believe for the Chicago Symphony. I believe.
Wow. Of course.
And he came to UTEP and gave us a master class. And he said the words that I've been hearing every week in lessons.
Yeah.
But it was just a little different because it was somebody different.
Exactly. Isn't that insane?
It's insane.
Yeah, and it's so funny to me because, and the teacher is usually sulking in the corner like, because the students are like, oh my God, yes, this is genius. And the teacher's like, hey, I've been saying this over and over.
Yeah.
So Mr. Otero's been teaching you some fantastic things. And so what have you, maybe some specifics? And so this is kind of an advertisement in a way for UTEP as well. And we'll talk a little bit about the AA and music in just a bit. But so give me 3 concrete things. Consistency was number 1.
Right.
What else? Slide positions. I mean, I'm thinking like, were there notes you didn't know yet?
Well, there's things that I was doing with my hand that I didn't know, which is, and I get into this with Mr. Otero every week.
Oh.
I'll do this weird thing where I'm doing plain and I'm doing like a chef's kiss.
Oh.
So instead of going da 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 da, I'm doing whoa whoa whoa. So
technique.
I would say it's one word, but realizing what you're doing. So sometimes you do something so often every day, you have blindness to constructive criticism.
Yes.
And so this is something that I wasn't expecting for him to tell me. I was maybe expecting for him to say, fix your tone, do this in this phrase of this song.
Right.
But here we are battling it out with, what are you doing with your hand?
Right.
So technique.
You just hit on the second thing that I don't know why it astounds me at this point, because I've worked with so many clarinet players. But it's exactly what you said. It's like students are not aware of what their body's doing. And specifically, like, for example, with you, when you articulate, you're tonguing the roof of your mouth.
Right.
Right? Okay. So for a clarinetist, we tongue the reed. Okay. So this is, I'm sure when you took Woodwin's class, that must have been hilarious.
And it was even double hilarious when we did double reeds with oboe and bassoon.
Oh, yes. No, of course. And so it's that the teacher cannot see what the student is doing within their mouth. And so the teacher has to rely on the student to tell them what they feel. But the problem is most students cannot describe because they've never become aware of what they're doing. And I find this to be the case, especially more with little kids, that when you tell them, well, I need you to tell me what you're doing with your tongue right now. And they're like, I don't know.
Most of them have never had to say that out in words.
Right, exactly. They've never been aware of it. Like, you learn to speak, you learn to walk without any real instruction. It's really just imitating what you watch, right? You watch your parents walk, and so you want to do the same thing. And through determination, after about 9 or 10 months, the child starts to move, right? And so because of that, then that's how a child learns how to walk, start to imitate the sounds that they're hearing at home. So now they're starting to talk a little bit, and they're, a few little words here and there. until one day they just start producing sentences and they start cursing out their parents. I don't know, whatever it may be, right? But yeah, so that being said, you hit upon the second big thing. So number one, consistency. Number two, being aware of what you're doing. I love that. That's so good. And so a third thing, maybe I'll jog your memory because I think you're having a hard time remembering. What about musicianship or musicality? What are some things, has Mr. Otero told you, like, about a specific solo? Like, oh, you know what, you over milk this, or clarinet players are notorious for that, by the way. We have a little wand, right? We're always doing this. We love to stir the pot. But for you, is there anything that you've learned about the way you play? You're not over expressive when you play. I still remember how you play, and so everything's very contained, right? Which is good. This is a good thing, Anthony. Don't be like Dr. Flores. And so, can you describe anything?
One of the key takeaways that we really instill on the trombone is listen to everything else that's not the trombone. So the cello players, the vocalists, and how they phrase everything, the musicality of their playing.
Right.
And so we exit our own realm, we step out of the trombone box, and we try to peep in to see what's going on to the other worlds, because that's what we want. And when people go and listen to musicians, they want to hear a cellist, and they might want to hear a vocalist. I don't know that they want to hear a solo trombone player all the time.
I hate to tell you this, Anthony, but yes, that is actually, so no offense to you, trombone is one of my least favorite instruments.
I remember you said that.
Yes. And so, but I do have to explain myself. I love the good one.
Okay.
Conrad Erwig. Have you ever heard of Conrad Erwig?
I don't recognize the name. Shame on me.
Shame on you.
Right.
Stunning. I need you to go home and find Conrad. Okay. I guess it's Herwig. It's H, right? I'm thinking in Spanish, Hernández, right? But it's H, Herwig. And the way I describe it, and I don't want any trombone players out there like John Feeney or anyone to take offense to what I'm about to say, but he makes it sound like a French horn.
Okay.
And it's so clean and so beautiful and stunning. And so I don't know what his secret is, but he's a jazz trombonist, okay? And I heard him live at the UNC Greeley Jazz Festival 100 years ago, feels like. So I'm assuming he's still playing, but because he was still relatively young back then, so I'm sure he still is. He was fantastic. Now, trombone, I think for me, when you listen to the average Joe, right? And John, by the way, John Feeney is not the average Joe. John Feeney is stunning as well. He's fantastic. But when you listen to, let's say, a high school student, right? And maybe that's why I picture this in my head. There's a lack of control of the instrument and a lack of control of the sound. Okay, and so then it's like some notes are soft, some notes are loud, nothing's quite contained, things sound sloppy, and this is coming from the mind of a clarinet player where we just press buttons. Not to underestimate what we do, but cheers, right? To me, it's much easier than a trombone. And so this is easy. That's all I have to do, right? But to control this and know exactly where the pitch is, right? And then you have to tongue every note on the trombone. Isn't that correct?
Even on glisses slightly, so
yes,
that's right.
Yes. And because otherwise you're going to wind up with this wah, 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 wah in between. So to get rid of it, you articulate every single note, even during a legato slur. So if you can try to sound like Conrad,
well,
those I know it's a tall order, but then I will actually want to hear Anthony's.
Yeah, that's I'll take you up on that.
Yes,
challenge.
Exactly. Yeah, but you touch upon another great point. So I had a teacher who's the second time I'm going to mention him this week, Robert Krause, Dr. Robert Krause at West Texas A&M. He was the oboe professor there, And Dr. Krause loved opera. And he was the one that opened my eyes to a lot of these sopranos, like Renee Fleming. The other one, I'm going to think of her name in just a moment. There's Renee Fleming, there's Cecilia Bartoli, there's Joan Sutherland is the one who I was thinking of, Kathleen Battle, all these sopranos. And he said something I'll never forget. And he said, an instrument's job is to sound like the voice.
That's right.
And I was like, what? I don't know why this had never, well, because I was young and stupid. Why does it come as a surprise? Right, yeah. The first time when he said that, it just like light bulb moment, right? You were like, oh, okay. And so that's when I began singing my clarinet music in the practice room. And so a lot of students will ask me today, and I hope they're watching this show, how do you sight read so well, Dr. Flores? I used to sit there and practice singing my clarinet part, right? And it was to try to imitate the fluidity of the voice on my instrument, right?
Right.
So this is before cell phones that I was in college, hello, and before, before YouTube, before all of that was my undergrad. And so this was what I had with me. I had my own voice, right? That's what we carry with us. And so I would sing it, and then I would play it, I would sing it, I would play it. When I got to my master's, I remember hearing one day Florida State had rows of practice rooms. 60 practice rooms, something absurd, right? And so you would walk down the aisles to find a practice room. And I remember hearing the Schumann Fantasy Stück, but not on the clarinet. I was like, wait, I'm singing along. Why am I singing along? Because I know this piece. Why do I know this piece? Because this is for clarinet. And it was a cellist playing the Fantasy Stück. And I started listening, and I was like, oh, that sounds better on the cello. The cello is a superior instrument. It is. And that opened my eyes. And so now, whenever I have to play the Brahms sonatas, I go back and I listen to viola recordings.
Interesting.
Because the viola doesn't have the problems the clarinet has. Wind instruments are clunky compared to string instruments. Strings, they don't have to breathe. They can chew gum while they play. Some of them do. Don't get me started. Anyway, so what you're saying is brilliant. And it's true. And I want to tell every musician out there to do exactly what Anthony just said, okay? If you have a solo that you're practicing, see if you can find it on YouTube, but also look for it on a different instrument.
Right.
It's genius. Anthony Franco Otero is a genius.
He really is.
Yeah.
I mean, he deserves all the credit.
Okay. Well, you know what, Anthony? In 10 years, in 15 years, I'm going to have another little Anthony Zavala here, that another student that's going to be your student. And they're going to be telling me about Mr. Zavala and everything that Mr. Zavala taught them. So you mentioned earlier that you are where in your bachelor's degree?
It's my last year.
It's your last
year.
So
this semester I started the College of Education program, and it's a lot of fun.
Good.
It's a lot of community hours.
Yes,
and
I remember that.
So studying for that. But interestingly enough, I took an interesting turn this semester.
Okay.
When we were speaking earlier, I mentioned that UTEP started its first semester this fall with, I believe, a bachelor's in music technology.
Yes.
But now we also have a new minor in arts entrepreneurship.
Oh.
And one of the new first cohorts.
That's wonderful. That's fantastic.
Right.
Anthony, I'm going to tell you right now, I'm looking at my crystal ball right now, and I could see you being an administrator. Like one of these fine arts directors at one of the districts.
That'd be a really cool gig.
I can see that. I have a feeling that's going to be you. And that's going to be you in about 25 years.
Well, it's interesting you say that, because actually we're already talking about learning how to write grants.
That's fantastic. Yeah. That's wonderful.
That's right.
Anthony, you've always impressed me because you're always so on top of things. And I think for you, when you were a student at EPCC, you're always very bright, always very. You pulled everything together. We performed on the 50th anniversary dinner for EPCC
with Mr. McDowell.
With Mr. McDowell and Daniel Becker and Salvador and Albert.
Albert, and he just graduated from UTEP recently too.
That's right. Yes. And so Albert, who is one of Mr. Harrison's students, was a tremendous guitarist and decided thank God, joined us for that gig, because I was having to kind of pull together. When EPCC calls us sometimes, they'll call the music department, they're like, can you put together 3 hours of music? Like, oh, sure. I just happen to have it in this trunk right here. And so they don't understand that it's a lot of rehearsal. It's that I think they assume that everybody is like Billy Towns, that we're all just on the ready. Like, right. Which tune do you want? Here it is. Bam. And we're not. If you're an educator, you spend the majority of your day grading, emailing, checking up on students, etc., right? You're not putting in the hours of practice that you did in college, right? And so I had so much fun, and I have great memories of that. And I actually used our picture from that 50th anniversary. I used it for Kim Diaz's show that I did yesterday, and which was great fun. The dialogues, I think it's called Dialogues on the Frontera, I believe is what it's called. And it's a great program with her and her colleague from UTEP. That was one of the pictures. And it's a proud moment of mine here at EPCC to have performed with my students. Right?
That was a really fun memory. I remember playing with you and Mr. McDowell.
Yes.
And it was the 50th anniversary of EPCC. I was a part of that. So
yes.
It was fun.
Yeah, absolutely. And so you always have that, in your inner photograph, right, collection. So you are looking at, so now you're finishing up your music ed degree, and then you're looking at this arts entrepreneurship. I love that. And so I'm trying to plan out your life right now, Anthony, right? I'm planning it out for you, whether you like it or not. So grad school, are you starting to entertain that yet, or are you going to kind of teach a little bit?
I want to teach a little bit.
Okay.
I want to teach a little bit.
Yeah.
I'm not saying that's impossible. I want to go to grad school.
Yeah.
But I want to teach first.
That's a good idea. And I say that in retrospect. So I went straight through.
Okay.
From 18 to 29, I was in school. There was not a year. And it's so funny because, so I got done with my courses in 2008, right? And I remember that fall of 2008 in my house doing nothing except for my dissertation. And I was just like, what do I do with my day? Like, because you're so used to getting up, you have to take a shower, you have to go to rehearsal, you have to go to class. And suddenly it's like time stood still, that I was suddenly like, I didn't know what to do with myself. So that's when I created a Pet on Pet Society on Facebook. Okay. He had a mansion by the time we were done. It was like, and so, because I had all this spare time, and so I was like, oh, he's growing vegetables. Okay, let me collect my vegetables, but for me, it was so interesting that I had to fill that void with something. And I look back and I go, I should have taught in between after the bachelor's. I should have taught, so I think that's a great idea. And I can see you doing that for a few years and then looking at different grad schools and taking a look at that. I think that's really terrific. And so, Anthony, El Dorado, tell me, I want to kind of just do a brief summary of you. Born and raised here in El Paso?
That's right.
You went to elementary school.
Well, that was before YouTube too, I think.
Oh, okay.
No, I went to Bill Cybert Middle School in elementary.
Okay. Okay. And did it have a middle school, or is that separate?
Oh, it was together.
Oh, nice. Okay. And then you went to El Dorado, and then you graduated, and you went to EPCC. Now you're at UTEP. You're looking at jobs. Are you starting to kind of talk to some of the local band directors to see who you can apprentice?
There is one band director. He's a middle school director. His name is Frankie Renteria, and
Okay.
I've been working with him. I mean, in the summer we did the Firebird. And we played at the Atkinson Hall and at MSU. And in the winter we're going to do the Nutcracker with, I believe it's the Las Cruces Ballet Theater.
Oh, nice. That's wonderful. Right. That's terrific.
Yeah.
Is he related to the other? No, I'm thinking of Candelaria.
Oh yeah.
No. No. Renteria. Renteria. Okay. Because some of these folks, I know them, and so I'm trying to picture him. So, are you thinking of student teaching with him?
I would love to.
Okay.
I mean, and particularly interestingly enough, especially with the demographic in our city, he teaches at McGoffin Middle School.
Oh wow.
So, we've talked about it, and he has said, if you want to do this, this is a good idea. This is if you want to know what it's like, this would be the perfect example.
It is. And middle school is the most awkward age. And so that would not just get your feet wet, that might just, hopefully it doesn't scare you away. But because they're an interesting bunch. Actually, you know what, I will say this, I would actually love to work with middle school. High school starts to get a little unruly because they're too close to becoming adults, right? And so that's really awesome. So McGoffin Middle School, hopefully. And then are you looking at becoming a middle school director or high school?
I would love to start as a middle school director.
Okay.
And a high school director as well, but I am actually not opposed to elementary education for music either.
Oh, nice.
I would be willing to take that challenge too.
Interesting. Okay, all right. So yeah, those jobs, there's a lot of those jobs, by the way, right now. One came available, as a matter of fact, that we may have to talk about after the show.
Nice.
Yes. So that's terrific. Okay, so ladies and gentlemen, all of you out there looking for a band director, we have Anthony Zavala, a beautiful personality, super organized, very on top of things. I'm always impressed with him. This is like your little resume for you here.
Thank you.
Yes, of course. And so please, if you would like to contact Anthony, you can certainly reach out to me at yflore14@epcc.edu. Otherwise, you can contact Mr. Zavala himself through UTEP and talk to Frank Otero there.
That's right.
Yes, and Anthony, lovely to have you on the show today. And if you would like any more information about the AA and music, contact us. You can contact me, Dr. Vasquez, or Dr. Garola in the music department. Thank you for joining us, everybody, and we'll see you next time. Bye-bye. Take care.